Hello, how are you, everybody? I do hope you're well. We're surviving. We have not been flooded out, thankfully. We live on top of a hill. We haven't been blown away, even though we live on top of a hill. And we still have power, which is why I'm able to talk to you today. Itchy nose. Why am I saying all that? Because we had a huge thunderstorm go through this morning. Oh, sometime between 5 o'clock and 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning through to then. And we got our water tank. Here's an explanation. Our water tank went from being about between half and 2/3 full to overflowing overnight. Well, just in that time frame. So that's a lot of rain and lots of thunder and lightning. It's nice to know the cat wasn't too spooked by it all. Now, I'm just going to make some adjustments because my graphics for my camera are looking a little bit weirdo. I did make some adjustments to it, and obviously they were not the best adjustments to have made to it. I thought I'd got it right, but not. So just hold your horses a minute and I'll get these sorted, I hope. Just try and get it so it's a little bit less twinkly around the edge, or sparkly, or whatever you want to determine it to be. So it's going to go bright green, and then I will change it, and then we'll go back to being normal with our our library picture in the background. So what I have to do is choose the colour and make an adjustment and see if that's going to be the one that works. There we go, and put that back on, and then that's about as weirdo around the edges as it was. Ooh, oh. Yes, we are looking a little bit green. Let's try taking some of the green out of it and smoothing the edge. Kind of, nearly. It's kind of better. That'll do for today. Some days it works well, some days not so well. Next time I'll just leave it alone. Whatever. So, what are we up to? We've been reading The Phoenix and the Carpet. We've got as far as nearly the end of the book. We've got 2 chapters left. We've got today and I was going to say tomorrow. It's not tomorrow. Wednesday. It's Monday here in New Zealand, just in case you were wondering. And the carpet's getting a little bit worn out. We've had two somebodies fall through it and had their own little adventure because of it, that sort of thing. And I'm wondering what's going to happen, how they're going to get out of this situation. So I think Mother's going to have to buy them another new carpet or replacement carpet, or maybe just leave them without one in the nursery, children's room, whatever, that's down in the basement. They've had all sorts of adventures with this carpet, haven't they? And what's going to happen to the Phoenix if the carpet gets worn out? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think initially the Phoenix was specifically associated with a carpet. I think it's more that the Phoenix decided that would be a good place in its previous iteration to lay its egg so that it could just quietly hide away until it was time to be rehatched. So we'll see what happens. I don't think it'll be this reading. I think that'll be next reading. We'll find out. Anyway, so what do I need to tell you? Oh, hi. If you're new here, I'm Jev. I read old-fashioned children's stories, in case you've been wondering why I'm just rambling like this. Old-fashioned children's stories. No, I can't see it. Sorry, I was looking behind me for another old book that I have that I sometimes wave around. Usually the sort of ones that have line illustrations in the illustrations of the book, just occasionally. Sometimes they're often hardcover books. Sometimes they've got colour print on the covers. Sometimes they've got like a gold foil print on the covers. Sometimes they don't have anything fancy on the covers. And often, at the moment, the ones I'm actually reading from are ebooks, because I'm reading them from, yes, it's all black, same colour as the background behind me, which is because I over contrasted it, the image behind me. It's an old first generation iPad mini, which is great for reading books from online. I download them from online and then I can read them to you. It's too old to be able to do updates. It's too old to be able to put apps on, but its built-in apps, the browser and the book reader, still work, so that's great. Oh yeah, there's that weird colour. Okay, I'll just stay back here where it doesn't go quite so weird and see if I can do some better adjustments before next time. What else? Why? Because why not? And they're fun. Most of the books that I've read so far have been ones with a lot of fun and adventure and often some rather mischievous children in them, whether they intend to be mischievous or not. That's just part of the story. Often, like William, which is one of the characters that we've had in a couple of books now, they don't intentionally cause trouble, but it just sort of happens because adults say something and then he takes that literally and applies it to the situation he's in, and then he gets in trouble for what the adult said that he went and did. Life's like that. Poor William. And then other ones, you've got children who are trying to be good and helpful and things like that, and that also gets them into trouble. So we've had quite a lot of that sort of story, which is nice to know that the older stories aren't necessarily all goody two-shoes type sort of trying to make children better and they're a bit preachy. Thankfully, they've been quite fun. So I just grabbed my water bottle because I didn't realise I didn't have it. My tips before I start reading. Get yourself something to drink. My drink of choice is water because it keeps you hydrated, which means that your brain keeps working as well as your body. They all need water, so make sure you've got some nice safe water to drink and have it handy. I'll take the lid off so I don't have to make noises with it later. And as I said this afternoon, our water tanks have been topped up, so that's all good. It is a bit warm here now that the rain has gone, so you may see me sort of fiddling around with my hair trying to get it out of the way because it makes me a bit too hot, uncomfortable. So suggestions are, have a drink of water handy and something to snack on, so that you don't have to run away because you're too hungry and you don't get hangry, and somewhere comfortable to sit. Although if you have jobs to do, if you are studying, or even if you're working, you're most welcome to listen without sitting still and paying attention. I don't expect that of you. It's just if you are just relaxing and listening, it's a good idea to have something comfortable, somewhere comfortable to sit or stand if you're a standing desk type person. What else? I think that's it. You're most welcome to call yourself out with a lurk command, and by that I mean that this is obviously, I'm talking to the people who are watching me live on Twitch, not the people who are watching this recording on YouTube in 2 weeks' time. So on Twitch, in the chat box, if you wish to, this is assuming that you actually have been following me for long enough, you can type in the chat box an exclamation mark and then the word lurk, L-U-R-K, no spaces. And that will then put a comment up in the chat box saying that you are lurking and probably thanking you for it. I can't remember what I told it to say. And then I can say hi if I actually spot it. Sorry, I don't always manage to. But you don't have to do that. If you want to just be anonymously lurking, that's also fine. I do have some, sorry, I'm looking sideways at my other monitor because it's on the other computer, which is my replacement one. They're both secondhand, but the one I'm currently using to stream from isn't in the best of health, and I really do need to replace it sometime soon with this other one, which is sitting on the floor with a monitor on top. And I'm looking at that just to see if there's any information I need, such as the fact that for some reason the stream isn't as stable as I would like it to be. I'm thinking that the modem is just having a little bit of a semi-rest and not providing a strong enough signal, but that's okay. That will improve over time as we get going. And I'm saying this because it has done this before. What else? I chat at the beginning of the reading, I chat at the end of the reading, and if we have shorter chapters, I will chat between chapters. You're welcome to chat in the chat box. If it's inappropriate, it'll be blocked or deleted, and if you keep being inappropriate, you will be blocked and banned. Why not? Because this is meant to be a family-friendly stream. Because I'm reading kids' stories. Come on, use your own brains. I shouldn't need to explain that to you. Anyway, so we're here for the fun. It's clean fun. It should be safe for parents and grandparents to be able to sit and listen to the story with their children and grandchildren. That's the idea. And it's a great way for us who have fond memories of some old stories to catch up on some things that we remember vaguely. It's been quite fun for me reading some of these books that I have read, maybe many of them several times, rereading them, and because it's been so long since I last read them, actually making some new discoveries in the story as I'm reading it. So most of the stories I've read before, and a lot of the stories are stories that my parents and my grandparents all grew up reading. It's not just me reading old stories, but them reading them, some of them when the stories were newer. There you go. I'm that old. Well, no, I'm not quite that old. But books are a great way to actually discover other parts and time periods of the world. So we shall carry on and discover some more, shall we? The Phoenix and the Carpet, Chapter 11, The Beginning of the End. And this book is written by Edith Nesbit, and she wrote one before this one and one after this one that go together as a set. The first one is 5 Children and It, the It being a sand fairy, also known as the Samiad, and the sequel to this being The Amulet. And we haven't read that one yet. We will read that. We will read that sometime in the future. Oh yeah, and if you haven't been here before, I often get lost on the page. It's just one of those funny things that happens, and you can laugh about it if you want. And you're most welcome to clip things if you want. If you're watching this on Twitch, go for it. Clip away. So, The Phoenix and the Carpet by E. Nesbit, written in 1904, Chapter 11, The Beginning of the End. Ooh. Well, I must say, Mother said, looking at the wishing carpet as it lay, all darned and mended, and backed with shiny American cloth on the floor of the nursery, I must say I've never in my life bought such a bad bargain as that carpet. Because Mother had bought it to replace the one that the children had accidentally destroyed by testing the fireworks indoors on their nursery floor. And it had got burnt, so she'd bought this one to replace it. And it hasn't really lasted that long. Anyway, a soft "oh" of contradiction sprang to the lips of Cyril, Robert, Jane, and Anthea. Mother looked at them quickly and said, "Well, of course I see you've mended it very nicely, and that was sweet of you, dears." "The boys helped too," said the dears, honourably. "But still, 22 and 9pence. It ought to have lasted for years. It's simply dreadful now. Well, never mind, darlings, you've done your best. I think we'll have coconut matting next time. A carpet doesn't have an easy life of it in this room, does it?" "It's not our fault, Mother, is it, that our boots are the really reliable kind?" Robert asked the question more in sorrow than in anger. "No, dear, we can't help our boots," said Mother cheerfully, "but we might change them when we come in, perhaps. It's just an idea of mine. I wouldn't dream of scolding on the very first morning after I've come home. Oh, my lamb, how could you?" This conversation was at breakfast, and the lamb had been beautifully good until everyone was looking at the carpet, and then it was for him but the work of a moment to turn a glass dish of syrupy blackberry jam upside down on his young head. Now, the lamb is the youngest of the 5 in the first book, which is 5 Children and It. And in this book, The Phoenix and the Carpet, most of the book we've only had 4 children, which is the 4 older ones. And there's quite a gap between the 4 older ones and the lamb. And I don't know if we've ever had actually what the lamb's proper name is, but that's the family nickname for him. I'm just going to check to see if there's a picture I'm meant to be showing you yet. Yes, I know, I should have got this sorted out beforehand. Right, I'm getting it ready. There we go. It's ready, but it's not just yet, I don't think. I will get out, or not in my overlay system, not in my streaming system. I will get out somewhere else the same pictures so I can see, because they're a bit bigger, without having to show them to you and spoil the surprise. So I can see what the pictures are coming up. Sorry. Come on. Anyway, I'll leave that sitting there and then I'll be able to show you in a minute when we get to that page. Oh, that one. Okay. It's loaded for me now. It just took a while. I don't think there's that many pictures in this chapter. Anyway, so the lamb has the syrupy blackberry jam upside down on his head. It was the work of a good many minutes and several persons to get the jam off him again, and this interesting work took people's minds off the carpet, and nothing more was said just then about its badness as a bargain, and about what Mother hoped for from coconut matting. Just a wee tip, if you like sitting on the floor, coconut matting is not very comfortable. Anyway, when the lamb was clean again, he had to be taken care of, while Mother rumpled her hair and inked her fingers and made her head ache over the difficult and twisted housekeeping accounts, which Cook gave her on dirty bits of paper, and which were supposed to explain how it was that Cook had only 5 pence halfpenny and a lot of unpaid bills left out of all the money Mother had sent her for housekeeping. Mother was very clever, but even she could not quite understand the cook's accounts. The lamb was very glad to have his brothers and sisters to play with him, because he's been away with Mother, and quite possibly they've been staying with some rather boring relatives. I'm not sure. I can't remember. He had not forgotten them a bit, and he made them play all the old exhausting games, whirling worlds where you swing the baby round and round by his hands, and leg and wing where you swing him from side to side by one ankle and one wrist. There was also climbing Vesuvius. In this game, the baby walks up you, and when he is standing on your shoulders, you shout as loud as you can, which is the rumbling of the burning mountain, and then tumble him gently onto the floor and roll him there, which is the destruction of Pompeii. Mount Vesuvius that blew up and destroyed the Roman city of Pompeii. That's what they're playing. All the same, I wish we could decide what we'd better say next time Mother says anything about the carpet, said Cyril, breathlessly ceasing to be a burning mountain. Well, you talk and decide, said Anthea. Here, you lovely ducky lamb, come to Panther and play Noah's Ark. Anthea's nickname is Panther. For those of you who are new here, those of you who know, that's okay. You can just ignore the extra words. The lamb came with his pretty hair all tumbled and his face all dusty from the destruction of Pompeii. He's been rolling on the floor, and instantly became a baby snake, hissing and wriggling and creeping in Anthea's arms as she said, I love my little baby snake. He hisses when he is awake. He creeps with such a wriggly creep. He wriggles even in his sleep. Crocky, said Lamb, and showed all his little teeth. So Anthea went on, I love my little crocodile. I love his toothful smile. It is so wonderful and wide. I like to see it from outside. Well, you see, Cyril was saying, it's just the old bother. Mother can't believe the real truth about the carpet, and you speak sooth, O Cyril, remarked the phoenix. Sooth, for truth. I think sooth is an old word for truth. I'm not sure. You speak sooth, old Cyril. Oh, Cyril, remarked the phoenix, coming out from the cupboard where the black beetles lived, and the torn books, and the broken slates, and the odd pieces of toys that had lost the rest of themselves. Now hear the wisdom of Phoenix, the son of the phoenix. There is a society called that, said Cyril. I'm having a hard time with these words. There is a society called that, said Cyril. Where is it, and what is a society? asked the bird. It's a sort of joined together lot of people, a sort of brotherhood, a kind of, well, something very like your temple, which was actually the headquarters of the insurance company, the Phoenix Insurance Company, which actually is a real place in London and a real organisation. And apparently they used some excerpts from this book or some illustrations from this book as promotional items after the book had been published. I bet you didn't know that. See if you can find any pictures of them. It's quite interesting. A little like a sort of brotherhood, a kind of, well, something very like your temple, only quite different. I take your meaning, said the Phoenix. I would fain see these calling themselves sons of the Phoenix. I would fain see these calling themselves sons of the Phoenix. But what about your words of wisdom? Wisdom is always welcome, said the Phoenix. Pretty Polly, remarked the Lamb, reaching his hands towards the golden speaker. That's the Phoenix. Pretty Polly. That references a parrot. So the child, the lamb, is calling the Phoenix Polly. The Phoenix modestly retreated behind Robert and Anthea, hastened to distract the attention of the lamb by murmuring, I love my little baby rabbit, but oh, he has a dreadful habit of paddling out among the rocks and soaking both his bunny socks. So the Phoenix has learned how to keep the child entertained too. I don't think you'd care about the sons of the Phoenix, really, said Robert. I've heard that they don't do anything fiery. They only drink a great deal, much more than other people, because they drink lemonade and fizzy things. And the more you drink of those, the more good you get. In your mind, perhaps, said Jane, who's the youngest of the four older children. But it wouldn't be good in your body. You'd get too balloony. You get all the gas inside you from the lemonade. The Phoenix yawned. Fizzy drinks, because lemonade wasn't necessarily a fizzy drink back then. The Phoenix yawned. Look here, said Anthea. I really have an idea. This isn't like a common carpet. It's very magic indeed. Don't you think if we put tacho on it and then gave it a rest, the magic part of it might grow like hair is supposed to? I think tacho is meant to be a hair stimulant. Maybe for men who are getting a little bit thin on top? Not sure. It might, said Robert, but I should think paraffin would do as well, at any rate as far as the smell goes, and that seems to be the great thing about tacho. But with all its faults, Anthea's idea was something to do, and they did it. It was Cyril who fetched the tacho bottle from Father's washstand. But the bottle had not much in it. We mustn't take it all, said Jane, in case Father's hair began to come off suddenly. If he hadn't anything to put on it, it might all drop off before Eliza had time to get round to the chemist for another bottle. It would be dreadful to have a bald father, and it would be all our fault. And wigs are very expensive, I believe, said Anthea. Look here, leave enough in the bottle to wet Father's head all over, in case any emergency emerges, and let's make up with paraffin. Remember we talked about paraffin before, the smell of paraffin somewhere? Paraffin being what we in New Zealand call kerosene, that is used for oil for lamps. I expect it's the smell that does the good really, and the smell's exactly the same. I'm thinking that tacho is rather expensive paraffin. Someone is selling it, rebottling it. So a small teaspoonful of the tacho was put on the edges of the worst darn in the carpet and rubbed carefully into the roots of the hairs of it, and all the parts that there was not enough tacho for had paraffin rubbed into them with a piece of flannel. Then the flannel was burned, made a gay flame, which delighted the Phoenix and the lamb. How often, said Mother, opening the door, how often am I to tell you that you are not to play with paraffin? What have you been doing? We have burnt a paraffin-y rag, said Anthea. It was no use telling Mother what they had done to the carpet. She did not know that it was a magic carpet, and no one wants to be laughed at for trying to mend an ordinary carpet with lamp oil. Well, don't do it again, said Mother. And now, away with melancholy. Father has sent a telegram. Look! She held it out, and the children read, holding it by its yielding corners. Box for kiddies at Garrick. Stalls for us. Haymarket. Meet Charing Cross, 6:30. rather skimpy with the words because it's a telegram and you pay per word. That means, said Mother, that you're going to see the water babies all by your happy selves, and Father and I will take you and fetch you. Give me the lamb, dear, and you and Jane put clean lace in your red evening frocks, and I shouldn't wonder if you found that they wanted ironing. This paraffin smell is ghastly. Run and get out your frocks. The frocks did want ironing. Wanted it rather badly, as it happened, for being of tomato-coloured Liberty silk, they had been found very useful for tableau vivants, when a red dress was required for Cardinal Richelieu. They were very nice tableaux, these, and I wish I could tell you about them, but one cannot tell everything in a story. You should have been specially interested in hearing about the tableau of the princes in the tower, where when one of the pillows burst and the youthful princes were so covered with feathers that the picture might very well have been called Michaelmas Eve or Plucking the Geese. So their attempts at putting on plays didn't go so well. Ironing the dresses and sewing the lace in occupied some time, and no one was dull because there was the theatre to look forward to, and also the possible growth of hairs on the carpet, for which everyone kept looking anxiously. By 4 o'clock, Jane was almost sure that several hairs were beginning to grow. The phoenix perched on the fender, and its conversation as usual was entertaining and instructive, like school prizes are said to be, but it seemed a little absent-minded and even a little sad. I wonder if the phoenix is realising there's a change going to happen. Don't you feel well, Phoenix dear? Asked Anthea, stopping to take an iron off the fire, because that's how you heated an iron in those days. No electricity. I am not sick, replied the golden bird with a gloomy shake of the head, but I am getting old. Why, you've hardly been hatched any time at all. Time, remarked the phoenix, is measured by heartbeats. I'm sure the palpitations I've had since I've known you are enough to blanch the feathers of any bird. But I thought you lived 500 years, said Robert, and you've hardly begun this set of years. Think of all the time that's before you. Time, said the phoenix, is, as you are probably aware, merely a convenient fiction. There is no such thing as time. I have lived in these 2 months at a pace which generously counterbalances 500 years of life in the desert. I am old, I am weary, I feel as if I ought to lay my egg and lay me down to my fiery sleep. But unless I'm careful, I shall be hatched again instantly, and that is a misfortune which I really do not think I could endure. Do not let me intrude these desperate personal reflections on your youthful happiness. What is the show at the theatre tonight? Wrestlers? Gladiators? A combat of camelopards and unicorns? I don't think so, said Cyril. It's called The Water Babies, and if it's like the book, there isn't any gladiating in it. The Water Babies was a book written by a chap called Charles Kingsley. There you go, and you can look that one up. Maybe that's a book that we shall read at some stage in the future. Maybe even next. How about I write that down? I'm just leaning over here to write it. The Water Babies by Charles Kingsley. Right. Oh, sorry, itchy nose again. Oh, right. Here we go. I don't think that, and if it's like the book, there isn't any gladiating in it. There are chimney sweeps and professors and a lobster and an otter and a salmon and children living in the water. It sounds chilly, said the phoenix, shivering, and went to sit on the tongs. I don't suppose there will be real water, said Jane, and theatres are very warm and pretty with a lot of gold and lamps. Wouldn't you like to come with us? I was going to say that, said Robert, in injured tones, only I know how rude it is to interrupt. Do come, Phoenix, old chap. It will cheer you up. It'll make you laugh like anything. Mr. Borchier always makes ripping plays. You ought to have seen Shock-Headed Peter last year. Your words are strange, said the phoenix. But I will come with you. The revels of this Borgia of whom you speak may help me to forget the weight of my years. So that evening the phoenix snugged inside the waistcoat of Robert's Eaton's, a very tight fit it seemed both to Robert and to the phoenix, and was taken to the play. Robert had to pretend to be cold at the glittering many-mirrored restaurant where they ate dinner, with father in evening dress, with a very shiny white shirt front, and mother looking lovely in her grey evening dress that changes into pink and green when she moves. That means it's shot silk or something like that, where the threads that are woven through it have different colours, and so when the light catches the threads of one direction, you see one colour. If it catches the threads of another direction, you see a different colour. Very intriguing. Robert pretended that he was too cold to take off his greatcoat, and so sat sweltering through what would have otherwise been a most thrilling meal. He felt that he was a blot on the smart beauty of the family, and he hoped the phoenix knew what he was suffering for its sake. Of course, we are all pleased to suffer for the sake of others, but we like them to know it, unless we are the very best and noblest of people, and Robert was just ordinary. Father was full of jokes and fun, and everyone laughed all the time, even with their mouths full, which is not manners. Robert thought father would not have been quite so funny about his keeping his overcoat on if father had known all the truth. And there Robert was probably right, because remember, father and mother have both been away for a while. And the children have been at home under the charge of the cook and the maid for quite a bit of the time. When dinner was finished, the last grape and the last paddle in the finger glasses, rinsing your fingers in the finger glasses so that they get the food off them, which means it's a posh restaurant. For it was a truly grown-up dinner, the children were taken to the theatre, guided to a box close to the stage, and left. Father's parting words were, "Now don't you stir out of this box, whatever you do. I shall be back before the end of the play. Be good and you will be happy. Is this zone torrid enough for the abandonment of greatcoats, Bobs? No? Well, then I should say you were sickening for something, mumps or measles or thrush or teething. Goodbye." He went, and Robert was at last able to remove his coat, mop his perspiring brow, and release the crushed and dishevelled phoenix. Robert had to arrange his damp hair at the looking-glass at the back of the box, and the phoenix had to preen its disordered feathers for some time before either of them were fit to be seen. They were very, very early. When the lights went up fully, the phoenix, balancing itself on the gilded back of a chair, swayed in ecstasy. "Oh, how fair a scene is this," it murmured, "how far fairer than my temple. Or have I guessed aright? Have you brought me hither to lift up my heart with emotions of joyous surprise? Tell me, my Robert, is it not that this is my true temple, and the other was but a humble shrine frequented by outcasts?" Oh dear, I think the phoenix might be going to take on something that it shouldn't. "I don't know about outcasts," said Robert, "but you can call this your temple if you like. Hush, the music is beginning. I'm not going to tell you about the play. As I said before, no one can tell everything, and no doubt you saw the water babies yourselves. If you did not, it was a shame, or rather a pity. What I must tell you is that though Cyril and Jane and Robert and Anthea enjoyed it as much as any children possibly could, the pleasure of the phoenix was far, far greater than theirs. "This is indeed my temple," it said again and again. "What radiant rites, and all to do honour to me." The songs in the play it took to be hymns in its honour, because they didn't really do too well at that sort of worshipful stuff at the insurance headquarters. The choruses were choric songs in its praise. The electric lights, it said, were magic torches, alighted for its sake, and it was so charmed with the footlights that the children could hardly persuade it to sit still. So the theatre has some electricity, but at home the children don't. Not for most use. They use gas lights in the house. Where am I? so charmed with the footlights that the children could hardly persuade it to sit still. But when the limelight was shown, it could contain its approval no longer. The limelight is light produced by a particular chemical compound which is particularly bright, and it shines the light onto the stage to produce so that you can see the actors and the scenery and everything really, really clearly while the people in the audience are looking at what is being lit up. It could contain its approval no longer. It flapped its golden wings and cried in a voice that could be heard all over the theatre, "Well done, my servants! Ye have my favour and my countenance." Little Tom on the stage stopped short in what he was saying. A deep breath was drawn by hundreds of lungs, and every eye in the house turned to the box where the luckless children cringed and most people hissed or said, "Shh," or "Turn them out." Then the play went on, and an attendant presently came to the box and spoke wrathfully. "It wasn't us, indeed it wasn't," said Anthea earnestly. "It was the bird." The man said, "Well then, they must keep their bird very quiet, disturbing everyone like this," he said. "It won't do it again," said Robert, glancing imploringly at the golden bird. "I'm sure it won't." "You have my leave to depart," said the phoenix gently. "Well, he is a beauty and no mistake," said the attendant, "only I'd cover him up during the acts. It upsets the performance." Like a parrot he's talking about, because you cover a parrot's cage so it won't talk when you want it to be quiet. And then he went. "Don't speak again, there's a dear," said Anthea, "and you shouldn't like to interfere with your own temple, would you?" So now the phoenix was quiet, but it kept whispering to the children. Sorry, I'm just keeping an eye on the weather. It was sunny. It's now getting extra warm, and I'm hoping it's not going to suddenly start raining. So if necessary, I shall have to message somebody to shut the windows that are up on the ceiling above me in case. I'm just going to get them ready. Right, just so they're aware of it in case I need those, because I don't want the rain coming in. Anyway, where are we up to? "You wouldn't like to interfere with your own temple, would you?" So now the phoenix was quiet, but it kept whispering to the children. It wanted to know why there was no altar, no fire, no incense, and became so excited and fretful and tiresome that 4 at least of the party of 5 wished deeply that it had been left at home. What happened next was entirely the fault of the phoenix. It was not in the least the fault of the theatre people, and no one can ever understand afterwards how it did happen. No one, that is, except the guilty bird itself and the 4 children. The phoenix was balancing itself on the gilt back of the chair, swaying backwards and forwards and up and down, as you may see your own domestic parrot do. I mean the grey one with the red tail. All eyes were on the stage, where the lobster was delighting the audience with that gem of a song, "If you can't walk straight, walk sideways," when the phoenix murmured warmly, "No altar, no fire, no incense," and then before any of the children could even begin to think of stopping it, it spread its bright wings and swept round the theatre, brushing its gleaming feathers against delicate hangings and gilded woodwork. It seemed to have made but one circular wing sweep, such as you may see a gull make over grey water on a stormy day. Next moment it was perched again on the chair back, and all around the theatre, where it had passed, little sparks shone like tinsel seeds, then little smoke wreaths curled up like growing plants. Little flames opened like flower buds. People whispered, then people shrieked, "Fire! Fire!" The curtain went down. The lights went up. That means they came on. "Fire!" cried everyone, and made for the doors. "A magnificent idea," said the phoenix complacently. "An enormous altar. Fire supplied free of charge. Doesn't the incense smell delicious?" The only smell was the stifling smell of smoke, of burning silk, or scorched varnish. The little flames had opened now into great flame flowers. The people in the theatre were shouting and pressing towards the doors. "Oh, how could you?" cried Jane. "Let's get out." "Father said stay here," said Anthea, very pale, and trying to speak in her ordinary voice. "He didn't mean stay and be roasted," said Robert. "No boys on burning decks for me, thank you." That's a line from a poem. The boy stood on the burning deck. His heart was all aflutter. I don't know if that's how it really goes in the poem, but it's kind of got a mockery version that's around. "Not much," said Cyril, and he opened the... Oh, I'll just read that bit again. "No boys on burning decks for me, thank you," said Robert. "Not much," said Cyril, and he opened the door of the box. But a fierce waft of smoke and hot air made him shut it again. It was not possible to get out that way. I'm just going to check that picture. I don't think it's ready for you yet. No, it's not. Sorry. There's a picture coming up. But a fierce waft of smoke and hot air made him shut it again. It was not possible to get out that way. They looked out over the front of the box. Could they climb down? It would be possible, certainly. But would they be much better off? "Look at the people," moaned Anthea. "We couldn't get through." And indeed the crowd round the doors looked as thick as flies in jam-making season. "I wish we'd never seen the phoenix," cried Jane. Even at that awful moment, Robert looked round to see if the bird had overheard a speech which, however natural, was hardly polite or grateful. The phoenix was gone. "Look here," said Cyril. "I've read about fires in papers. I'm sure it's all right. Let's wait here, as Father said." "We can't do anything else," said Anthea bitterly. "Look here," said Robert. "I'm not frightened. No, I'm not. The phoenix has never been a skunk yet, and I'm certain it'll see us through somehow. I believe in the phoenix." "The phoenix thanks you, O Robert," said a golden voice at his feet, and there was the phoenix itself on the wishing carpet. "Quick," it said, "stand on those portions of the carpet which are truly antique and authentic," and a sudden jet of flame stopped its words. Alas, the phoenix had unconsciously warmed to its subject, and in the unintentional heat of the moment had set fire to the paraffin with which that morning the children had anointed the carpet. It burned merrily. The children tried in vain to stamp it out. They had to stand back and let it burn itself out. When the paraffin had burned away, it was found that it had taken with it all the darns of Scotch heather mixture fingering, that's the thread they used to fix it with. Only the fabric of the old carpet was left, and that was full of holes. "Come," said the phoenix, "I'm cool now." The 4 children got on to what was left of the carpet. Very careful they were not to leave a leg or hand hanging over one of the holes. It was very hot. The theatre was a pit of fire. Everyone else had got out. Jane had to sit on Anthea's lap. It's really quite an awkward situation they're in, isn't it? Sorry, I'm just trying to keep an eye on things here. Yep, that's looking a lot better. I said it would probably actually right itself, didn't I? Okay. And that. Sorry, I just have there's some information I have to save. Carrying on. Jane had to sit on Anthea's lap. "Home," said Cyril, and instantly the cool draught from under the nursery door played upon their legs as they sat. They were all on the carpet still, and the carpet was lying in its proper place on the nursery floor, as calm and unmoved as though it had never been to the theatre or taken part in a fire in its life. 4 long breaths of deep relief were instantly breathed. The draught, which they had never liked before, was for the moment quite pleasant. The nursery is in the basement and it catches a draught under the door, and so therefore it makes the room rather cold in winter, which is the time of year they're in. And hence the reference to it being rather pleasant after having been in the fire. Where am I? And they were safe, and everyone else was safe. The theatre had been quite empty when they left. Everyone was sure of that. They presently found themselves all talking at once. Somehow none of their adventures had given them so much to talk about. None other had seemed so real. "Did you notice?" they said. "Do you remember?" When suddenly Anthea's face turned pale under the dirt which it had collected on it during the fire. "Oh," she cried, "Mother and Father! Oh, how awful! They will think we're burned to cinders. Oh, let's go this minute and tell them we aren't." "We should only miss them," said the sensible Cyril. "Well, you go then," said Anthea, "or I will, only do wash your face first. Mother will be sure to think you are burnt to a cinder. If she sees you as black as that, and she'll faint or be ill or something. Oh, I do wish we'd never got to know that phoenix." "Hush," said Robert. "It's no use being rude to the bird. I suppose it can't help its nature. Perhaps we'd better wash too. Now I come to think of it, my hands are rather—" No one had noticed the phoenix since it had bidden them to step on the carpet, and no one noticed that no one had noticed. All were partially clean, and Cyril was just plunging into his greatcoat to go and look for his parents. He, and not unjustly, called it looking for a needle and a bundle of hay, when the sound of Father's latchkey in the front door sent everyone bounding up the stairs. "Are you all safe?" cried their mother's voice. "Are you all safe?" And the next moment she was kneeling on the linoleum of the hall, trying to kiss 4 damp children at once, and laughing and crying by turns, while Father stood looking on and saying he was blessed or something. "But how did you guess we'd come home?" said Cyril later, when everyone was calm enough for talking. "Well, it was rather a rum thing. We heard the garrick was on fire, and of course we went straight there," said Father briskly. "We couldn't find you, of course, and we couldn't get in, but the fireman told us everyone was safely out. And then I heard a voice at my ear saying, 'Cyril, Anthea, Robert and Jane,' and something touched me on the shoulder. It was a great yellow pigeon, and it got in the way of my seeing who'd spoken. It fluttered off, and then someone said in the other ear, 'They're safe at home.' And when I turned again to see who was speaking, hanged if there wasn't that confounded pigeon on my other shoulder. Dazed by the fire, I suppose. Your mother said it was the voice of—" "I said it was the bird who spoke," said Mother. Sorry, here we go. Here's your picture. "I said it was the bird who spoke," said Mother. There's Mother. And there's the bird. "And so it was," she said. "Or at least I thought so then. It wasn't a pigeon, it was an orange-coloured cockatoo. I don't care who it was that spoke. It was true, and you're safe." Mother began to cry again, and Father said bed was a good place after the pleasures of the stage. So everyone went there. They're probably all rather relieved. Robert had a talk to the phoenix that night. "Oh, very well," said the bird when Robert had said what he felt. "Didn't you know that I had power over fire? Do not distress yourself. I, like my high priests in Lombard Street, can undo the work of flames. Kindly open the casement." It flew out. That was why the papers said next day that the fire at the theatre had done less damage than had been anticipated. As a matter of fact, it had done none, for the phoenix spent the night in putting things straight. How the management accounted for this, and how many of the theatre officials still believe that they were mad on that night, will never be known. Next day, Mother saw the burnt holes in the carpet. "It caught where it was paraffin-y," said Anthea. "I must get rid of that carpet at once," said Mother. But what the children said in sad whispers to each other as they pondered over last night's events was, "We must get rid of that phoenix." And that's the end of the chapter, which was the beginning of the end. And the next chapter is the end of the end, and it's longer, so I'm not starting now. And in it, we shall find out what happens to the carpet and to the phoenix. Oh, goodness me, that was close. I wonder if there actually is a record of the Garrick Theatre catching fire. Maybe we could look that one up, shall we? I'm going to have a look. I don't know about you, but I'm going to have a look. Not that one. That was in World War One. There was a fire at the Garrick Theatre. I don't know if it's the same Garrick Theatre. No, there's nothing about an earlier fire, but possibly it's the sort of thing that they had actually had happening with other theatres, and therefore it was something that people were aware of, and the author decided it was something useful to put into the story. There you go. Let's find out what we can about the Garrick Theatre. The Gaiety Theatre, Garrick's subscription, no. Garrick Theatre, Charing Cross Road. Architect Walter Emden and C.J. Phipps, 1899. So it was actually a relatively new theatre at the time of the story being written. Is that my little flags rattling, or is that the rain dripping? I'm not sure. This late 19th century theatre was financed by W.S. Gilbert. I wonder if that's Gilbert of Gilbert and Sullivan. Opening on the 24th of April 1889 with Arthur Wing Pinero's The Profligate. Here, Sidney Grundy scored a triumph with the long-running French-style comedy A Pair of Spectacles in February 1890. Can't have done that because it opened in 1899. Mrs. Patrick Campbell caused a sensation 5 years later as the lead in Pinero's The Notorious Mrs. Ebbsmith. Afterwards, the theatre suffered a period of decline until 1900, when leased by Mr. Arthur Bourchier, whose wife, Violet Vanbrugh, starred in a series of successful productions ranging from straight farce to Shakespeare. So I'm thinking that 1899 is not correct because there's several references to it being used extensively before 1900. Enough for it to be able to decline. So possibly 1889? I don't know. That's interesting. So yes, it was a real theatre. What else? Is there anything else we need to find out about? Do you know anything about phoenixes? Phoenix as a mythological creature as opposed to Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix in mythology. And I'm giving you this because it's not even 4 o'clock. So why not? The phoenix is an immortal bird associated with Greek mythology, and has similar characters in many other cultures, that cyclically regenerates or is otherwise born again. Associated with the sun, a phoenix obtains new life by arising from the ashes of its predecessor. Some legends say it dies in a show of flames and combustion, others that it simply dies and decomposes before being born again. In all the stories I've come across, it's actually hatched again as a bird. In the Motif Index of Folk Literature, did you know there was such a thing? A tool used by folklorists, the phoenix is classified as motif B32. So somebody has classified folklore into all sorts of different categories, and they've gone around the world analysing folk tales of various cultures and fitting those into various categories, I suppose. Why else would you have a category? If it's not because you want to go around labelling things, I suppose. The origin of the phoenix has been attributed to ancient Egypt by Herodotus, and later 19th century scholars. Herodotus was ancient Greek, so that's a huge gap between him and the 19th century scholars, but other scholars think that the Egyptian texts may have been influenced by classical folklore. Over time, the phoenix motif spread and gained a variety of new associations. And I'm not going to read all those names. A whole lot of people who have contributed to retelling and transmission of the idea, the concept, the motif of the phoenix. So it has extended beyond its original usage of it. So anyway, there's all that random information. And thank you for following. Wonderful. Appreciate that. So we have one more day's worth of reading next time, which is in 2 days from now for me in New Zealand. That will be Wednesday from 3 o'clock onwards. And that will conclude this story. We will not read the sequel straight away. We shall read something else. And I'm just wondering what we are going to read. I'm wondering if any of my regular listeners actually have suggestions of what book we should read next. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Not another William one, because we've only just finished one reasonably recently. I'm wondering if I'm going to read a slightly more grown-up but still technically a children's story called Emily of New Moon. It's written by the same lady who wrote the Anne of Green Gables series of books, L.M. Montgomery. She's Canadian. And Emily of New Moon was a book of hers that I read. She actually wrote 3 books that were sequels, as you know, Emily of New Moon, Emily Climbs, and Emily's Quest. I didn't really get into the other 2 as much, but I loved Emily of New Moon. I probably won't this time around, but how about I read that next time, after we've finished this book? Possibly. We'll see, shall we? Yeah, that sounds like a possible plan. We'll see how that one goes. And it may introduce some of you to a new range of books that you haven't heard before. I know a lot of, not young people, but other ones, in between sort of age group ones, are familiar with the Anne books because of the Anne TV series, Anne of Green Gables, or not sure what the series has been called on TV. I'm pretty sure it's come out under several names. But there were a lot of books in that series, a lot of books. So we shall see, shall we? We'll see how far we get with that as an idea. I might have to have a bit of a pre-read myself just to familiarise myself with the book. From what I understand of the background of the author, L.M. Montgomery, she saw more of herself in the Emily books than she ever did in the Anne books. And so in some ways, if you're an Anne of Green Gables and L.M. Montgomery fan, it's a very, very natural one for us to read. So there you go. We shall maybe read that next after we've finished this book. Anyway, so here we come, 4 o'clock, nearly time for me to finish, so why don't we finish now? I will give you all the guff. So I will give you the links in the chat, and I shall also talk about them. So the first one I'm going to give you is YouTube. If you are here watching me live, then that means you're watching me on Twitch, which means that you can actually interact with me through the chat box after you've been following me long enough, because this is one of the ways we prevent bots from being inappropriate and people being inappropriate, because sometimes they get a bit impatient and just give up and go away. Anyway, so if you would like to listen to some more stories or catch up on ones where you've listened to part of the story and you've missed other ones because you've had other things happening on certain days of the week when I still read, then if you go over to my YouTube channel, which is what that link is, you will find that I have videos of all the previous stories that I've read. And I have bundled them into playlists for the different books, and you can either just pick out the ones that you've missed, or you can go to a playlist and listen right through a book. You'll still get all my chatter, except there's a couple of videos where I've ended up editing it just because there was a lot of other extra faffing around going on. So I've taken out some chunks, or where I've had to actually step away from the camera for a bit. So I've taken out the empty bit. But other than that, they're unedited. They don't have the overlay around the video. They don't have the starting soon screen. But apart from that, they're the same. You see the same thing as what you see if you're watching me here on Twitch. Now, if you're on YouTube and you're wanting to engage with the chat live so you can feel like it's actually part of something that's really happening when you're listening, then go to my Twitch channel, which you will find a link for. I'm not going to bother writing that into the chat because you won't see that. If you're on YouTube, you will find that in my profile information, and you can follow that link and follow me on Twitch, and Twitch will notify you when I go live. Just like you can subscribe on YouTube, and YouTube will notify you if you hit the bell icon, instead of it just showing you when you happen to be on YouTube that I've put up a new video. If you hit the bell icon, then it will actually tell you when I am live, as I actually go live. No, not live. When I put up a video, it'll tell you when I've put up a video. And also on YouTube, hit the like button, just because it helps YouTube to recognize that that is something you've enjoyed, and so it will show you other ones in the series, which can make it a little bit easier to find them. And also other people who like looking at similar things to you, they will see the suggestions to enjoy the stories. And then there's one other thing. If you're really, really, really into quiet communities that hardly ever talk to each other and very occasionally make reference to books that we've read, you can join our Discord server. And I've given the people on Twitch the link for that. And if you go to my About page on YouTube, you will see it there. So there you go. How to find out all about me and the books. And yes, there are links on both of my page profiles on YouTube and on Twitch. For my Instagram account, I usually put up a photo of something that's not obviously connected to reading, but sometimes it is, and some comment about it, some semi-inspirational or thoughtful thought in a very vague way on my Instagram post, and it will say that I'm going to be reading soon, and that's a handy way to actually see. I'll go, oh, that's right, it's reading time soon. So you can get ready, get your snacks ready, get your drinks ready. I have a drink that I haven't been drinking aside from my water, and that is my iced coffee, my homemade one. If you're a coffee person and you like it simple, then all it is machine-made coffee. We've got a coffee machine, espresso, topped up with full-fat whole milk, cold whole milk. And it's lovely, very refreshing and wonderful when it's summer, which is what it is here. Well, it's actually technically autumn, but it's still summery warm. We're now having the autumn storms though. Anyway, and hopefully sometime soon I will get on to doing you some subscriber and follower emotes, and then you'll be able to use those in the chat. That might actually encourage you to actually interact on chat, mightn't it? How about that? Oh, that's a possibility. Actually, if you go over to Discord and join our Discord community, you can make some suggestions as to what sort of chat emotes you would like to see. That's an idea. I like that one, because it's a little bit like, what are we going to do for my chat emotes? I should have a whole bunch of them, because I can actually do them now. I can put them in there. It's just I've got to actually get around to doing them, and I've got to get some ideas for what to do. And I mean, what do you want to use as a chat emote? Some of my weird faces, but a cartoon version of them? That would work actually. But how about you suggest them? Come on over to our Discord server. Join in. Very occasionally, when I remember and I have some time and room in my head, I will actually post illustrations from the books that we've been reading. And I'll put them in lists for the different books that they are for, just so you don't have to wade through pages, scrolling pages and pages of messages to find them. It makes it a lot easier. So anyway, all of that stuff, lots and lots of words. Do we need any more words? Probably not. And I'm just going to say one more time, thank you for being here. I think I've already got this information. Oh, copy. There you go. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I hope you have a wonderful week ahead of you, that there's not too many hard things going on for you. And if you have got some horrible and hard things going on, I hope you have some moments of pleasure, of rest, of quiet, of relaxation, small joys. Look for small joys because they help you to have a peaceful heart, which I think we all need a bit more of these days. So anyway, thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time. Happy reading. Bye.